Hello and welcome to Unprofessional Engineering. My name is James.
You got Luke.
Luke, I love this topic. I think it's
Oh
a
my
long
goodness.
time coming and it just feels like a perfect fit for our show. The top 10 fake materials of all time.
And I'm apologizing ahead of time, James, to all of our
Uh-oh.
listeners.
Uh-oh.
We normally try to keep these to 30 minutes.
Uh-oh.
And
This might
I'm
go a
going to
little...
do my absolute best. But this is up there with like the Christmas episode and toys. This has literally probably been one of my most favorite, just easily top 10 of our 239 episodes thus far. Easily top 10.
That's impressive. Easily. Well, since you are so excited, would you like to kick things off?
Okay, I will. So mine are in no particular order because they are all just so amazing and
equally good.
And I think you're going to see a theme here, James.
Okay.
Almost every one of these came from my childhood in a movie.
Okay.
My very first one is the Dark Crystal itself.
Oh, that's such a good one.
From the movie The Dark Crystal, 1982. And if you've never been to this page called fandom.com,
right?
Apparently they like all these people just it's like the wiki for like TV and game and video nerds and video game nerds.
We use the word nerds with love.
We do,
like we fall into that. Yes,
I'm without one. I'm without a doubt one. So the Dark Crystal itself is actually considered a sentient entity, meaning it's actually alive.
Yeah, it is.
It has the ability to speak in some instances, and it must be from like some of the lore because I don't remember that in the movie. It's actually the heart of the planet Thra, Thra, that the movie
that where
the
Dark
Skeksis
take over.
Oh, the Skeksis, yeah. And what the Dark Crystal does is it actually links all the plants and animals together, which is interesting because when you think about like the Dark Crystal and like what that represents, it made me think of the movie Avatar and how the planet all was connected with animals and stuff like that. And it's just kind of interesting. And the problem with the Dark Crystal was there was a shard missing, and that's what the whole premise of the movie was. But yeah, the Dark Crystal is, again, no particular order, but it's 1982. God, man.
Fun fact, Luke, did you know that the building in London, the Shard, was named after the Dark Crystal shard that was missing?
You're such a liar.
Was that too much of a stretch?
That was way too much of a stretch. What's yours, James?
That was really good.
Thank you.
I'm impressed with what you've been doing already. My first one is Dilithium from Star Trek. You should be very familiar with this one because I know that you are a Star Trek kind of guy. So in Star Trek, the fictional universe, I'm told that it is, dilithium is a material occurring in a crystalline form, which serves as a controlling agent in the matter-antimatter reaction cores used to power the like super fast warp drive propulsion, right? It has like different uses, we'll say, throughout Star Trek as new forms of the show came on. But generally speaking, that was one of the main purposes for this material. Anything that can send you into faster than light warp drive is okay in my book.
I totally agree.
Yeah, and I'll put this out there. I think, and I could be wrong because I haven't played it in a while, but I believe this was one of the elements that you could harvest in No Man's Sky, the video game as well. So it was a space-themed video game, and it was also used for warp drive and other things that you could manufacture it into. So I love seeing where like it could be used in Next Generation, but then it could also be used in a video game, and how different genres or different things have taken it and kind of twisted it into what they needed it to be. So that was numero 10 for me.
Okay, so you did yours in like, so you're doing least.
I have mine in my least liking to most liking.
Well, I'm gonna, if you're okay, I'm gonna add on to your Star Wars and give another Star Trek material. So mine is, and this one is not going to be fictitious because it ended up being real. Mine is transparent aluminum.
Okay,
so
transparent aluminum.
In Star Trek IV, what is that? 1V?
I think so.
I forget what Roman numerals.
Or VI, I don't know.
It's IV, The Voyage Home. This was in 1986, by far the worst of all the Star Trek movies. If you recall in Star Trek, The Voyage Home, Earth is the future, Earth is having issues and whatever's happening, and they need whales. And apparently whales have been extinct since whatever year they decide to come back to Earth. They travel in time, they come back to pick up some whales. And for some reason, rather than just building it out of steel, they needed to see the whales for some reason. So Scotty invented transparent aluminum on a 1986 computer, typing on the keyboard. It was one of the
doing the old hunt and peck to find his way on the keys.
Ridiculous scene I've ever seen in a movie. So some interesting facts about it. A piece of it that is 60 feet by 10 feet by 1 inch can withstand 18,000 cubic feet of water. And at the time,
1 inch thick.
1 inch thick. At the time, I was thinking about it, like, what does that mean? But what's the weight? Like the kid in me was like, oh, I just assume that's a lot of water. But
Sounds
the
like
reality is, you need to probably know the pounds per square inch on that surface.
For sure,
you don't just need the total volume of water, because what if it was really low? Like the volume it doesn't make a difference. So yeah, it was interesting, but it was one of the funniest scenes in the movie.
Just how bad it was.
Oh yeah, you know how they talk to the computer when he tried to invent the aluminum, he just started talking to the computer, and then they handed him the mouse, and he started talking into the mouse.
Mm-hmm.
So. Yeah, transparent aluminum is actually a real thing nowadays.
That's very cool. I love when we did a whole episode on like sci-fi stuff that became reality. Like iPads basically were a Star Trek thing, and now everybody has them, or they used to, and now they all have phones that are the size of iPads. My number 9 is also Star Trek, and I'm not a Star Trek guy, really. We've made this clear throughout the episodes. But this is such a big one, and it falls into something else that I'm going to put it out there, and that is tritanium. And this is the most stable form. In its most stable form, it has the atomic mass of 323, obviously, and it was discovered by humans and the Federation for the first time on planet Argus X on stardate 2261 and in the early 23rd century. This element is part of the transuranic series of heavy elements, obviously. Refined tritanium, though, is used by all sorts of races and cultures. It's used for construction purposes primarily. For example, though, the Federation used tritanium for the hulls of starships, while others used it to create planetary facilities. The Klingons also used tritanium aboard their Vorkh class starships. Can you say that, Luke?
No, I can't.
Vorkh. No? Okay.
No, I don't speak Klingon. Sorry.
Raw tritanium ore emits a type of radiation that can also interfere with communication, obviously.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
So that's no good. That's caused some trouble. But the reason that I really like this one is because it's also a big thing on EVE Online. For those of you who don't know, you listen to us, you probably know, unless you're younger, I guess. EVE Online is like a space video game, but it's basically a giant spreadsheet. So it's all about the nerds. Tritanium is a primary construction material on EVE Online, and it's used in most structures and ships in New Eden. It's found in most ores. However, it's really abundant in Veldspar. Not super valuable because it's so abundant, but super necessary for all the construction that goes on in that game. I like games.
Nice. I have a short one before we take our first break.
Sounds good.
Mine is Triforce.
Like Zelda?
So this is
gosh, that's so good, Luke.
The Legend of Zelda. The game, as far as I know, came out in 1986, at least here in the United States.
America.
And if you're unfamiliar with what the Triforce
Stop listening to us.
Exactly. So these are golden sacred triangles that were left behind by the 3 golden goddesses: Din, the goddess of power, Naru, the goddess of wisdom, and Faror, the goddess of courage. And when the Triforce comes together, whoever possesses the Triforce, James, is granted any wish that they have.
Man.
But the interesting thing is, as good as you would think, like the Triforce is, it doesn't understand good and evil. Like, it's just whatever you want, it does. Even though there's, a goddess of goodness, it still just does whatever you want it to do.
It's like a genie, but without the limitations, huh?
Exactly.
Wow, that's outstanding. The
Yeah.
Triforce is another great pick, Luke. I'm
Yeah.
impressed. You're blowing me away so
and there's
far.
literally just so many things I could talk about in it, but for the sake of time, I'm trying to hit like the high
That's
level
fair.
things for each of these.
All right, very good. So let's take a break, like you said, for a word from our sponsor.
I have to assume it's Nintendo, maybe the Star Trek universe,
Maybe fandom. I don't know.
Fandom.
No, none of those things. But we
Oh.
do have some shout outs. Shout out numero uno. That is number 1, in case you didn't know, Luke. Holly B, a new fan who is in year numero dos. Do you know how many that is?
7, easy.
7, that's right, of a mechanical engineering degree at the University of Liverpool.
Mud hens?
Mud hens. Thinking about bioceramics or biomed as a specialization or just materials.
I don't know what bioceramics is, but
Yeah,
okay.
you probably can't go wrong either way. So good luck with all of that, and keep an eye out for your stickers in the next year or two when I get around to sending them. Aaron B also wrote in, a civil engineering student that wants some stickers. Civil, that's okay. Aaron feels like one of the good civils, Luke.
Okay.
Suggesting that we do more topics around environmental engineering or sustainable infrastructure. I told her that you hate the environment and you have styrofoam bonfires every night. So
I do.
Maybe not good fit for you.
I do. I actually take things out of my recycle bin on purpose that I know don't biodegrade, and I put them in my regular garbage.
That's smart of you.
I have a fun fact for you while we're on this topic here a little bit.
Let's hear it.
My daughter is thinking, she's only 14, but she's thinking she might want to be an environmental engineer. She's kind of granola-y. She likes to save the planet, and she shuts the water off when she brushes her teeth rather than just letting it run down the drain.
I turn on extra faucets while I brush.
So I may end up starting to like civil and environmental engineering.
Very
a little bit more,
nice.
since my daughter's kind of.
Well, I hope she pursues that. That's wonderful. I wanted to give you a little bit of information.
Ooh.
Recently created today is the LinkedIn Unprofessional Engineering company page.
What?
It currently has 1 employee listed. That's moi, but
What
you
about me?
certainly could join the page as an employee,
How
Luke.
can I not be an employee?
Well, now you can be. Anyone who wants to go check it out, it will probably never have any content or anything else on there, but it looks nice on my resume.
Okay.
So, Luke, go check that out. Moving on. Next on my list is Unobtainium. So this one's really interesting.
This one shows up in a couple places, doesn't it?
It shows up all over the place. But what's interesting is it's used in fiction, it's used in thought experiments, it's used in actual engineering. And unobtainium is kind of this thing that just represents some sort of material that's like either impossible to get for whatever you're working on, or it's like really expensive to get. It's really rare, but for some reason it's costly or you can't actually get your hands on it. So in the fake worlds, unobtainium has been used all over the place, like in science fiction. Let's see here. So in 2003, it was in the movie Core. H.G. Wells used it in novels, The First Men in the Moon. The novel Ringworld by Larry Niven used it. The Dune universe. Dune has come back in popularity recently, especially in the board game community. It's also used there. And you mentioned already the movie Avatar. Unobtainium was mined on the fictional moon, like the fictional moon, Pandora, and was a room temperature superconductor. So all of this cool stuff, like movies, books, it's been used for centuries to describe things, but it's also used in the real world, just as like, if we had this material, this is theoretical, this is how things would be done. So I really liked that tie-in.
Were you a fan of the movie Avatar? I feel like people were like, you either loved Avatar like me or you hated it.
So I first saw the movie Avatar in China. It was all subtitles, and it's usually like a 3-hour long movie, and it was like an hour and a half long because they cropped out so much stuff that the government didn't see fit to show. So I did not really enjoy it that much, but the next time I watched it, it seemed good. I'd like to go to that Avatar land in Disney. But we'll see.
Okay. So you just mentioned Dune, and I'm gonna do 2 at one time just for the sake of. So this, I'm telling this is talk about like taking me back. Spice, aka Spice Melange, from the movie Dune, 1983. So spice was a naturally produced awareness spectrum narcotic that formed a foundational block for commerce and technological development in the entire known Dune universe.
Wow.
It's produced exclusively on a single planet in the universe, Arrakis, of course. I think everybody knows that it's Arrakis. And it's funny how it's made. You want to know how it's made?
I do.
So first of all,
Dune.
the fungal excretions from sand trout. Sand trout are sandworm babies.
They are.
Would mix with the water and form what is considered a pre-spice mass. This mass would then be brought to the surface of the desert through explosions and pressure and all the heat in the air on the Arrakis planet. This would then, melange or spice would then form. The worms, sandworms, when they would die, would give off their sand trout into the sand, and then the cycle would repeat itself.
Impressive.
Highly addictive. And it gives you all kinds of precognition and all kinds of psychedelic. So it was basically acid, I think, in the Dune
kind of
universe.
Feels like it.
The next one is even trippier. This is the water of life from Dune, 1983. And if you recall, the water of life was what Paul Atreides had to drink. He was the only man to ever do it. It's this blue poisonous liquid that the Bene Gesserit would actually have to consume to become one of like the Reverend Mother bald shaved head ladies that were like psychedelic. And it's made from the bile of a young sandworm.
The bile of a young sandworm. That's delightful.
So first of all, I love the movie Dune. I've never read the books because they're way too big, but I cannot wait until the new Dune comes out because my daughter loves the new main character, Timothy Chalamet. Yeah. And I guess he's the Paul Atreides in the new movie. So
sure, if you say so. So I don't know if my buddy Jimbo is listening or keeping track anymore, but he's going to have a lot of movies to match up to our references if he's still doing so. My next one, speaking of movies, is Flubber. I don't know if we could go through this list without saying Flubber. It was invented on screen by Fred McMurray in the movie The Absent-Minded Professor. It's kind of like a do-all substance, really, but it's like anti-gravity slime or like some sort of goo that actually gained energy on impact. So if you would like slam it off the floor, it would gain a ton of energy and spring all over the place, right? Flubber stood for flying rubber. Flubber. And with it, you could fly, obviously, flying rubber. It can gain energy when it hits strong surfaces. It can also apparently dance around a house and save a family if you've seen the movies. So that's pretty useful. In the Robin Williams remake, Professor Philip Brainard, Brain, Ard, is the one who invents it, trying to create a substance that is like a new source of energy that's going to save Medfield College, where his sweetheart works. And then, hilarity ensues, blah, blah, blah.
Of course.
Fun fact, of course. Fun fact for you, you can make Flubber at home. It can be made by combining polyvinyl acetate-based adhesives, get at your store, and Elmer's glue with baking soda. So basically taking Elmer's glue and mixing it with baking soda, borax, and like shaving cream, optional, but it helps with the consistency. And it makes a great STEM project in elementary school.
So, fun fact, my daughter had, they call it slime nowadays. It's not called Flubber anymore. My daughter had a slime phase where all she wanted to do was make slime. And I think I was on some kind of watch list because we were ordering borax like by the case online.
Like, nothing good could be being done here.
And she destroyed every single piece of Tupperware in our house. Okay, my next one.
Environmental engineer in the making,
exactly. Mimetic polyalloy. This is from Terminator 2 Judgment
I wondered
Day,
if you were going to go with this.
1991.
Yeah.
So this is a type of artificial liquid metal compound that is applied to advanced Terminator series, such as the T-1000s, the 950s, the X's. And in the movie, if you recall, the liquid metal has the ability to withstand literally any physical damage. But you would think that, Skynet would be smarter when they're making this stuff, because all you have to do is get it really hot or get it really cold. Like you either put it up to 1,535 degrees Celsius, which,
seems easy.
I'm fairly certain my grill gets to that sometimes. Or you basically just pour liquid nitrogen on it continuously and you basically destroy it. So hindsight, not the greatest Terminator. But yeah, this was, and this has shown up in multiple Terminators since then. So
I love it. I think that's a good choice. I thought you might go there. I think it's time to take a break for this week's Luke's rant, and then we're going to have to bust through some of these other ones.
Yeah, we'll make it quick. So my rant is, it's not a rant, James. It's an homage to a fellow by the name of Lou Otten. He was the Dutch inventor of the cassette tape. He just passed away earlier this week. I think it was the 11th of March, 2021, depending on when you're watching. He was the ripe old age of 94 years old, and I just remember growing up making mixtapes.
Oh my gosh!
Listening to,
waiting for the radio to play your song.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah.
Like I don't know what my life would have been like without cassette tapes as a young man. I listened to so much like Billy Joel and Van Halen and Motley Crue and AC/DC, and I mean it's just like, and mixtapes is all I did was make mixtapes. So
I love it. You've never made me one, and that hurts a little.
Well, they're a lot more difficult to make nowadays.
That's true.
So I just wanted to give an homage to a big part of my childhood. So again, Lou Otten, the inventor of the cassette tape.
Rest in peace, Lou. This reminds me very much of Hollywood Babylon podcast I listened to. And they have a part of it called Hollywood Stiffs, and they just kind of go through the celebrities that died that week. But that's interesting. Okay, I'm going to do a two for Luke.
Okay.
To save a little time, both coming from the Star Wars universe. Kyber crystals. They're also called lightsaber crystals. It's the living crystal and is known in ancient time as Kyber, Kiburr crystals. They're force-attuned crystals. They grow within nature and they're found scattered on planets across the galaxy. They were used by the Jedi and the Sith in the construction of their sabers, obviously. As part of the Jedi training, though, the young Jedi, what are they, Padawans? Were sent to the Crystal Cave on the ice planet to mine their own crystals to construct their own lightsabers. And the crystals mix was kind of like a unique luster that they called the water of the Kyber by the Jedi. Fun fact, there were also larger rare crystals of great power that, according to legend, were used at the heart of the ancient super weapons by the Sith. So I was unaware of that. So moving on, number two. Gosh, I have so much good information on that too. The next one for Star Wars, of course, carbonite, right? How can you go without listing this one? It's a liquid substance that was made from carbon gas that could change into a solid through rapid freezing. Goods, I didn't really know this. Goods could be encased in carbonite for preservation through a process known as carbon freezing. And so they would use this to send stuff back and forth. Droids such as DLC-13 mining droid could be made out of heat-resistant carbonite, which is kind of interesting. Apparently this was used in the Clone Wars to ship Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin and some other folks around so that they could get past the stormtroopers. But of course, we all know this most famously for... Exactly. Luke being stuck like he is there. When Jabba sticks old Han Solo in his frozen form in this carbonite, and then we have to go save him.
I have an action figure of that somewhere. I don't know
you
where
do
it
have
is.
an
I
action
have an
figure
of it.
I think that's where Boba Fett might have first been seen as well. Around those scenes, which is pretty interesting. So good job, Jabba. Very famous. Moving on.
Let's stick with Star Wars.
Nice.
Let's go with I think it's pronounced Biscar.
Okay, Biscar.
So this is 1977, the first Star Wars. It's also known as Mandalorian iron. It's super popular now. It's
Oh,
in
of
all
course
the
it is.
movies, and it's in not the movies. It's in obviously the Mandalorian series. And this is the raw material that the legendary Mandalorians use to craft their armor. So,
Hmm.
so here's a couple things I don't understand. So Biscar, I think I'm pronouncing it correctly.
That's the fancy silver one, not
Yeah.
like the beat up green suit,
So
right?
all Mandalorian armor is made of this,
Okay.
or different grades of this. So it could be like a
Oh,
pure
but not the pure one.
Beskar. Yeah.
Okay.
So Beskar is one of the toughest and most legendary metals in the galaxy. It's durable enough to withstand blaster shots as well as lightsaber strikes. But the thing that I don't understand is, if this stuff is so like strong, how can they just like melt this down? I don't know if you saw some of the most recent stars, but they like melt it down like pretty quickly
And
and
then
just
like
like make.
forge it like
It's like
nothing.
really,
Yeah.
it's like I would think you'd have to put this thing inside of a star to melt it down. So Beskar.
I think that's a good one. I'm going to move on to what is my personal favorite on my list, but really I only have it listed as like number 3, and that is Mithril.
Ooh,
Mithril
that's a
is
good one.
just, it's perfect for everything James. Like it's so nerdy. It's in so much nerdy stuff that it just really makes me
Really,
feel
I only
good.
know one spot. Where else is it?
Originally described in the Lord of the Rings trilogy,
Mm-hmm.
Mithril is a super durable silvery metal that's very light and extremely strong. Mithril means gray gleam, but it
Ooh.
translates as true silver. It was mined in native form in Moria, which, that's just terrible sounding. But in addition to Lord of the Rings, which is amazing and makes me super happy, Mithril can also be found in the video game Final Fantasy, which is
Really?
my favorite, probably, video game series of all time. It can also be found in Kingdom Hearts, which is popular. I didn't get to play it much because it was before or after my time, but Mithril also is used in another one of my favorite games, Dungeons and Dragons. It's also used in the world Warhammer. If you know Warhammer, any of the tabletop gamers out there will. High Elven Metal. It's used in World of Warcraft. It's used in Guild Wars 2. It's also used in the Elder Scrolls Oblivion. So another one of
Okay.
my favorite game series. It's all over nerdy fiction.
Really?
Like
I assumed it was only Lord of the Rings.
if you have a sword and magic and that stuff, you have Mithril too.
Okay.
So love it.
Okay.
Ah.
Alrighty. I'm going to throw two of mine together again, just in the
Mm-hmm.
interest of time. These two. So Miracle Max's pill from The Princess Bride, 1987. If you remember
Wow.
Miracle Max, it was a pill that had it had the capability of bringing people back to life that were only mostly dead, and it had a chocolate coating to make it go down easier. And
Yeah, it did.
if you were all dead, the only thing you could do is go through their pockets and look for loose change.
Yeah, very true. I love it.
Have fun
Oh,
storming the castle. And then my next one, keeping in mind, was
yes.
The Princess Bride, 1987. This is iocane powder. It is a
Oh,
colorless, odorless, and deadly poison from Australia. Iocane powder is noted as being one of the most deadly poisons known to man. It has no odor, no taste, and it dissolves instantly when poured into a liquid. But
mm-hmm.
one can build up an immunity to iocane by gradually ingesting trace doses over a period of time. I did a little bit of research. There is absolutely no way that in reality, you can't take small doses of poison and build up an immunity. You just, if you take a normal dose, you might just get really sick and not die. If you
Remember
take a
that,
normal
kids.
dose, you'll die.
Don't try and build up your poison immunity with small doses. You
So,
heard it here first.
yes, Princess Bride, one of my favorite movies all time.
Very good. It's a good one. Yeah. My next one, Vibranium, with Black Panther being all the rage, right?
Mm-hmm.
At least it was a while ago. Vibranium became much more popular. Very rare metallic ore with energy manipulating properties. Not so unlike Flubber, if you ask me.
Mm-hmm.
It's theorized to have been brought to Earth originally by a meteorite 1 million years ago. makes sense to me. They
Totally.
studied it, and it's definitely extraterrestrial in origin. Vibranium was once mined on a number of planets. All of those mines have apparently been exhausted, though, so that's
Oh,
unfortunate. But Earth has all sorts of it. And of course, we know that Earth has all sorts of it in Wakanda, right? And
of
that's
course.
where the Black Panther is like king. But I guess he's not going to be king, right? Isn't his sister or something going to take over?
Something like that.
Something. Fun fact, Luke: Wakandian vibranium is also known as vibranium A. It's
Ooh,
found almost exclusively in the tiny African nation of Wakanda. Also, there are applications for this, such as Captain America's shield is made of a vibranium iron alloy in some forms. Avengers Tower, this is interesting, is reinforced with vibranium laced concrete. Panther's teeth, claws, basically everything uses vibranium. And the storage tanks in Weapon X program are used using vibranium glass casing.
oh, okay.
Heck yeah. All right,
Alrighty,
continuing
my
on.
last one, PX41.
What is
Do you know
PX41? No, I don't know that one.
Despicable Me 2,
Oh,
2001.
nice.
So it's a mutagen that can be activated by drinking or injecting. PX41's effects can only be counteracted with its antidote, and it actually reverses all the effects. But when you are infected with PX41, most notably, you turn purple, but you also become physically tough. You're
Like you.
immune. You're immune to bullets and trauma and heat. Your digestive system becomes all of a sudden, capable of digesting large quantities of anything you want to eat, including things that are not digestible. Even though you seem to have no cognitive function, you still recognize gibberish when under the influences of PX41. And there's actually no matched non-mutant power that can counteract the effects of PX41.
Oh, how about that?
Yeah.
Very good. All right.
My last thing before we go, you know how hard I tried to get something from the movie Neverending Story, but I couldn't find anything.
Oh,
I
the
literally
tears of that dying horse, maybe. Wah,
I'm
wah.
gonna start crying.
I have two left, Luke. Kryptonite. Obviously, no brainer, right? First off, did you know there's different colors of kryptonite?
I do, but I forget what they mean.
There's green, there's red, gold, blue, yellow, platinum, and a whole bunch more. And they all have different forms and do different things. Green's the one we all know and love, right? It takes down Superman.
Why
Fun
would you
fact,
love it? It takes him down.
Some of us are bad guys, Luke.
Okay.
Kryptonite concept was first developed by Superman co-creator Jerry Siegel in an unpublished Superman story. It made its first comic book appearance in Superman number 61. And boy, I just have a whole bunch of other fun things here. It's thought that kryptonite was created through the destruction of Krypton.
When it exploded.
Yes. And then the last one that I have, I feel like this is, again, a no-brainer. Adamantium. Of course, we know everybody knows it because of Wolverine's claws and his bones being covered in that, making him virtually indestructible, right? Coupling that with his healing powers, he's a real monster. He's an animal. But really, Hercules, the demigod of Greek myth, wielded an enchanted golden mace, which, according to legend, was made of adamantine, and it's supposed to be indestructible. So that's pretty interesting. Inspired by this myth, Dr. Myron McLean sought to create the indestructible ally for the American side in World War II. Of course, we know that then goes into like he fell asleep basically making this stuff, so he could never really replicate it. But it involved combining steel, vibranium, and some unknown catalyst because he fell asleep to make this material. A sample was worked into a disc, and that's what became Captain America's shield. Pretty interesting stuff. All sorts of stuff to go on about that. I'm not really going to get into it much. A couple of fun facts, though. It first appeared in Avengers number 66 back in July of 1969. That's a long time. Applications, of course, Wolverine's claws, but also Sabretooth's, Weapon
Mm-hmm.
X project, Bullseye's spinal cord only. Apparently, we were being very sparing with it. Lady Deathstrike, Bucky's Captain America suit, and X-23's claws. It even shows up in Warhammer 40K some places, again, for my tabletop gamers.
The
So
thing
that's interesting.
that amazed me most about like some of these DC and Marvel, like a lot of the ones that you did, there's so
Uh-huh.
much crossover from
Oh
like
my
board
goodness.
games and video
Yes.
games and like mythology and different things. I was really surprised by that whenever I heard some of that.
Yeah, I wanted to give a couple shout outs to honorable mentions for
Shoot.
all of our other nerds listening that are going to yell at us. And also, please yell at us. Let us know
Oh,
what
of
we
course.
missed. Let us know what we got wrong, everything. Redstone from Minecraft. It basically lets you develop electricity. It's awesome. Ketchin, Dragon Ball Z, Jumbonium in Futurama, Jerktonium in SpongeBob, Dale Kennium in Doctor Who, and Mega Man had Seratonium. And then my last one I'll throw out there, Frankonium from The Simpsons. Dr.
Okay.
Frank developed it. So
Okay.
all great inventions, just didn't make the top 10.
All righty.
Luke, I loved this. I loved yours. Yours were amazing.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest.
So this is basically like you could basically know what my childhood was like based off of this list and the movies I watched as a kid. So
hopefully you all enjoyed these great materials we had to talk about. If we missed any that you think we should give some respect to, if you just want to enlighten us with some stuff we didn't know about what we mentioned, anything like that, how about you email us at unprofessionalengineering@gmail.com. And until next time,
see it.